Hello and welcome. This is everything you need to know for Conference Championship Sunday. We'll highlight everything we saw in the divisional round and what it means going forward. All right, Evan, let's start with the NFC, and we'll start with the 49ers here. This was a scary game for the 49ers. Scary because Brock Purdy looked shook again to me. I mean, some really poor decisions and throws. We simply have not seen the hyper efficient form that we saw from Brock Purdy for almost the entire season. We haven't seen that in like a month or so. Now, I did think losing Deebo Samuel after just 6 routes clearly hurt Brock Purdy and this entire offense in a huge way. But needing a crazy 69-yard touchdown drive with a minute left to escape with a win here was not what I expected. Evan, what did you see out of 49ers win over the Packers?
Yeah, so there were 3 things that really stuck out to me about the 49ers offensive performance and Brock Purdy in particular. First of all, they came out using Deebo Samuel aggressively early. He went out and did not return, and now he's 50-50 to play in the NFC Championship game. But clearly he was going to have a big role in the game plan. And you saw it, like Juwan Jennings went off a little bit after that. Chris Conley also stepped into that role in some ways. And those guys wound up with six combined catches for almost 80 yards. So, and Deebo Samuel had 2 catches for 24 really early, really on the first drive. So removing that aspect from the game plan, I think definitely played a role in the way that Brock Purdy played. But there were things that went beyond that. The game was played in driving rain. And I wonder if that had a significant effect on Brock Purdy. He missed a lot of throws, like easy throws. I have not seen him miss throws like that in any other game this season. So those would be my 2 excuses, or my 2 to 3 reasons for why Brock Purdy played at a subpar level. He was the biggest problem on the 49ers offense in this game. And he also was rattled. The Packers are a lot more talented on their defensive front than the 49ers are on their offensive line. So the 49ers come out, they're still so talented. They're able to come out with a win. But Brock Purdy's play was concerning, but I think also explainable in some ways.
Yeah, and he did have a really good throw to George Kittle for that touchdown. I mean, that was an awesome throw rolling to his right to hit George Kittle there. I know for MVP voting, these games don't count, but you saw Christian McCaffrey actually be incredibly valuable to this team. I don't know that they win this game without Christian McCaffrey breaking tackles, going up the middle, scoring touchdown. I mean, guy is just incredible. And this is coming from someone who mocks the RB truthers relentlessly. This Christian McCaffrey was extremely valuable in this game, of course. The other thing that I want to talk about is what they do if Deebo can't play. So Brock Purdy dropped back 43 times in this game. Ayuk ran 43 routes. Juwan Jennings, 31. Ray McLeod, 16. Chris Conley, 16. Ronnie Bell was a healthy scratch. Ronnie Bell, if Deebo Samuel can't go, Ronnie Bell will probably be active. I kind of think Deebo will gut it out because that's what Deebo does often, but I can't be so sure. You saw them get all confused. Juwan Jennings, they handed the ball off to Juwan Jennings. That's not what they wanted to do. After the game, Kyle Shanahan was like, no, we just got confused with our wristband, and we ended up handing the ball to Juwan Jennings. So they're kind of a mess without Deebo. What do you think their plan is if he can't go?
Yeah, Juwan Jennings runs like a 4.7 something. So he's not – he can make plays after the catch. He's extremely physical. He's a good blocker, really good role player for them, but definitely not a guy you want to hand it off to. The way that Kyle Shanahan described Deebo Samuel's injury was that it is not he doesn't have any broken bones. There's nothing structural. And it's going to come down to an issue of pain management. They got a ton of ways to deal with pain. The tear-it-all shot obviously is going to probably come into play here, and Deebo Samuel can play through pain. So I'm with you that even though Kyle Shanahan deemed him 50, or Adam Schefter reported that he was 50-50 on Monday, as we get through the week, I think especially if Deebo's able to get in any amount of practice, I think that we're going to see him in the NFC Championship game. Will he be affected? I don't know. That's a time will tell thing.
Yeah, and we'll talk more about the Debo situation on Friday on Establish the Show. 49ers opened up as a 6.5 point favorite over the Detroit Lions. We'll get to them in a minute here. Just wanted to close the loop on the Packers here. I mean, they easily could have, and honestly, maybe should have been in the NFC Championship game with the youngest team in the entire NFL. It's hard, if you're a Packers fan, it is hard to come away from this season anything but really, really optimistic after the way Jordan Love and this offense played for the final, I don't know, 6 or 7 weeks. So, yeah, Evan, any final words here on the Packers as they head to their offseason?
Yeah, I think it was more than 6 or 7 weeks because it was really like week 9 on. So it was, and then when you include the playoffs, it was more than half of a season. Again, we talked about top 5, top 10 quarterbacks going forward for the next 1, 2, 3 years. I think that Jordan Love is, you could put him very high and it would be difficult to have a strong argument against him. You could put him like number 7 among all quarterbacks, and he definitely has a case for that. Again, all these first and second year receivers balling out. Aaron Jones was awesome in this game. They came out like they looked like they were going to try to impose their will offensively through the running game. And you can run on San Francisco a little bit. So I really like this. And they were just feeding Aaron Jones. And the way that he played down the stretch, you remember there was a point in time during the season where we were like, is this guy washed?
Yep.
No, he's not. When he finally got healthy, he reproved himself as one of the best running backs in the NFL. And that's the way that they looked in this game against San Francisco. They played a really physical style. They used a ton of multiple tight end sets. And, and those tight ends are both rookies. So their offensive outlook is really promising going forward.
I was just reading an article today about Christian Watson and all the hamstring stuff. He's not taking it lightly. The team's not taking it lightly. And there's a difference between, Christian McCaffrey's injury prone because he had some fluke injury 3 years ago versus Christian Watson, who literally has pulled his hamstring 4 or 5 times in the span of a calendar year. And so Christian Watson is well aware of this. It's going to be really hard to know if he's going to solve it, but he's meeting with people. The Packers are meeting with people. They're just trying to get to the root cause of it. So that's something to watch. This offseason, Packers do have the 25th overall pick in the draft as well.
One last thing I wanted to mention. Remember we were talking about, I think it was Friday, A.J. Dillon looked like he was going to come back. Didn't get and we were like, if the Packers are smart, he isn't going to play.
Right.
And he didn't get a single touch. Emmanuel Wilson played ahead of him. And I wonder if he is going to have a roster spot on the 2024 Packers.
Yeah, that's interesting for sure. We're working on an article right now already for cut candidates this offseason for Dynasty and Best Ball Bros. Stay tuned for that. Lions. So Lions drop back Jared Goff 46 times in a home game against the Bucs in divisional playoffs, and it works. He doesn't turn the ball over. He only takes 2 sacks. He completes 30 passes as the Lions hold on for a 31-23 win. And I mean, when you play the Bucs, you're gonna have to throw a lot. Jared Goff at home has been so good, and this was just kind of, I thought, as expected. Like the game went as expected, high scoring. Jared Goff's gonna play well at home, and they're gonna throw a ton against this Bucs secondary. So I thought a pretty as expected game. Evan, what do you think of Lions win over the Bucs?
Yeah, my strongest position in betting this week was the over on this game, and it was a roller coaster because they came out. It was 3-3 at the end of the first quarter.
Mm-hmm.
They missed a freaking field goal in the second quarter, and I'm like, oh god, I don't even know if I want to watch this. I'm dead. I told everybody to bet the over in Bucs Lions. I went on Ed Fang's show. He was promoting my pick, and I'm like, oh god, I can't take this. But both teams were able to rally a little bit offensively in the second half, and we got there. I think it closed at 49 or 49 and a half, and we got 54. So that put me in a much better mood for the weekend. Yeah. The Jared Goff is just so well prepared and skilled in a way to beat a team that blitzes a lot and is not good in over the middle, short to intermediate coverage, and that's the Buccaneers. Because he's got Amon-Ra St. Brown in the slot. He's got Sam Laporta at tight end, work in the middle of the field. And Sam Laporta looked a lot healthier this week than he did last. And then the running backs can make plays in the passing game too. So it's just it always lined up to be pretty clean for Jared Goff, with the exception. One thing that worried me during the game was that Jonah Jackson went out. Their left guard. It looks like he's not going to play in the NFC Championship game, and he can be a difference maker. Frank Ragnow, arguably the best center in the league, also got banged up. I think he did return.
Yeah.
But he's probably going to have to gut it out through some pain. I'm sure that he'll be out there in the NFC Championship game. But those were two concerns up front heading into the NFC Championship.
They're playing hurt. A lot of their guys are playing hurt. And yeah, I thought Laporta at the beginning of the game looked awesome, like almost 100%. He ended up running 36 routes on 46 Jared Goff dropbacks. Later in the game, it seemed like he was a little bit more hobbled, and I think they even might have pointed it out on the broadcast. But yeah, Laporta certainly, clearly can still be effective even at less than 100%. Jameson Williams actually out-targeted Josh Reynolds in this game, which I wouldn't have bet on. I wanted Jameson for big playability, still thought Reynolds would out-target him. Jameson out-targets Reynolds, but Reynolds outproduces him in fantasy by getting the touchdown there. And then, man, Jahmyr Gibbs is like, reminds me, I don't want to say Christian McCaffrey because that's like such high, crazy praise, but Jahmyr Gibbs is so explosive and so good in the pass game. And as we talked about on Friday, yeah, Dave Montgomery is the goal line back. Jahmyr Gibbs has still scored 12 rushing touchdowns this season, 7 of them from outside the 10-yard line, scored another one from outside the 10-yard line in this game. So, man, like Jahmyr Gibbs is the exact kind of running back I want to have, kind of both in real life and fantasy. But yeah, any thoughts on JMO or Gibbs or anything else before we move on here, Evan?
I would just say I think that we would need to see Jameson Williams after a full training camp. And I think that he could be, one of the classic third-year wide receiver breakouts. But for Jahmyr Gibbs, the comparison that they made internally with the Lions was Jamal Charles, because I think that John Dorsey, he was with Kansas City when they had Jamal Charles, and that was kind of the player like, oh yeah, we're willing to take him at 12. I think he probably would have been available at 18. They wound up taking Jack Campbell at 18, but they were willing to take him at 12 because they identified him as Jamal Charles is a Hall of Fame caliber player. I don't think he is going to get in, but I think that he is definitely deserving. And Jahmyr Gibbs, I think that's a good comparison for him.
Yep. Okay. Bucs season is over. There's a lot of controversy around Todd Bowles right now for not calling his final timeout. Lets the clock run out. Bucs probably would have gotten the ball back with 10 seconds left on their own 20 or something. So, I don't want to kill Bowles for it, but clock management has been an issue for much of the year. But anyways, Baker Mayfield caps his comeback season with 349 pass yards, two touchdowns. Did throw a bad interception on that final drive, but what a year for him. And honestly, Evan, what a year for Mike Evans. I mean, Mike Evans now enters free agency. He'll be 31 in August, but he enters free agency off arguably the best season of his career with arguably some of the worst quarterback play of his career, or at least quarterback caliber, if you want to talk about Baker Mayfield. So I don't know, man. I don't know what's going to happen with Mike Evans in free agency. The Bucs want him back. I have no idea what it's going to cost. But yeah, any thoughts on the Bucs as their season ends?
Yeah, Baker Mayfield's a free agent too. And it'll be very interesting to see what his market is like. The stats were good in this game. I thought he was a little shakier than the stats suggested. Not always super comfortable in the pocket, not always confident. Wound up taking 4 sacks on 45 dropbacks. Had just specific plays that stood out where he was just holding the ball too long. He's still a flawed quarterback, and it'll be just interesting to see what the market bears for Baker Mayfield. The league definitely needs quarterbacks. We saw that throughout the season. But the league is also going to be getting a lot of quarterbacks back from injury. Mike Evans, I was super tilted early in the game regarding this over because he had a bad drop that turned into an interception right at midfield. And that's not, and the Bucs were kind of driving at that point. When you're betting overs and you see interceptions at midfield, that's one of the worst things that can happen, especially on promising drives. But he wound up with a really productive game. So did Cade Otton. I think that they have a solid. Worst Cade Otton is not a dynamic player, but I mean he's an okay middle of the range middle of the road league average tight end starter. I always like to see players like Mike Evans, who again I think is a Hall of Famer, like a lock Hall of Famer, play their entire career with one team. Maybe that's just the traditionalist in me, but I kind of hope it goes that way. But he's going to want to win a Super Bowl.
Yeah. Not going to happen with Tampa, I don't think. Ravens, as we move to the AFC here. So this Ravens-Texans game was somehow 10-10 at halftime. Steven Sims had that big punt return touchdown. So they go into halftime, the Texans feeling really good. Ravens may be feeling shaky. Game ends 34-10. And Ravens defense here against Stroud was very good, even without Marlon Humphrey. I mean, Texans managed only 10 first downs in this entire game. They only got 47 plays off. They only scored 3 offensive points. So Lamar was incredible again, 16 of 22, runs for 100 yards, accounts for 4 touchdowns. But the defense to hold Stroud to 3 points, I mean, that is something. Evan, what do you think of Ravens' win over the Texans?
Yeah, I thought it was funny, kind of, but also annoying how people were like, at least on Twitter, were like, praising Lamar Jackson for a really good game. And then some people will come out and be like, he threw for 152. Like, it's just so disingenuous because, first of all, he went 16 of 22. And then they just just don't count like the rushing production. He ran for 100 and 2 touchdowns. Like that's what he is, can we get away from this idea that everything regarding the quarterback, especially a quarterback like Lamar Jackson, has to come down to like passing yards? I mean, he makes such a bigger difference than that. And he was awesome in this game. The people that watched it should know that. He didn't have to have a super big passing game because they jumped out to like a significant lead in the second half as well. So I don't know, another great game from Lamar Jackson. Justice Hill, I feel like is looking better than he has at any point in his career. He's given them some juice in the backfield. And Isaiah Likely had a really nice touchdown catch as well, continues to fill in well. It'll be interesting. I think that they're going to get Mark Andrews back this week. I thought that they might get him back last week, especially after he turned in consecutive full practices. But he did say, hey, I don't want to just be close. I want to feel 100%. So they held him out, got a resounding win. I think he's going to play this week.
So do I. Isaiah Likely ran 24 routes on those 29 Lamar Jackson dropbacks in that game. We're going to be stone guessing here for the most part, but I think we're going to project it somewhere around 55-45 in favor of Andrews on the tight end usage, but we'll certainly be looking for clues there. But yeah, I think some kind of split is likely. What was surprised me from a usage standpoint in this game, Evan, was Odell Beckham only ran 8 routes. And he seemed healthy. He said he was saving, and the Ravens said they were saving him for the playoffs. His role actually went down in the playoffs. Nelson Aguilar ran 18 routes. Rashad Bateman ran 21. Zay Flowers ran 25. And again, Beckham only ran 8. So I don't know exactly what happened there, but I do think Nelson Aguilar can play a little bit, and he should definitely be on the radar for people playing any kind of conference championship fantasy games. I don't know, Evan, any thoughts on the Beckham, Aguilar, Bateman stuff?
I really don't. I was buying into the speculation based on John Harbaugh's comments, and he has a pretty good track record when it comes to coach speak, that Odell Beckham was going to play more, that he might be like a 70% player in this game, and that obviously was not the case, and I don't exactly know why.
Yeah. The running back opportunities, and by the way, Gus Edwards hurt his left hand in the fourth quarter. I think he's going to be fine, but just something to watch there. But through 3 quarters, when the game was in touch, Gus Edwards, 11 opportunities, Justice Hill, 9. All I can think about is if J.K. Dobbins had stayed healthy or if Keaton Mitchell had stayed healthy. I mean, they'd be smashing. They're just so much more talented than Gus Edwards and Justice Hill. So, yeah, shame on those guys. Ravens open up as 3.5-point favorites over the Chiefs here in Baltimore. Get to the Chiefs here in a second. First, want to close the loop on the Texans. So they were drawing real thin here. Line was 10. I know some sharp people had Ravens should have been a much bigger favorite than that. No Tank Dell. Offensive line, not great. No Noah Brown. You're playing in Baltimore. But going forward, you have CJ Stroud, Tank Dell, Nico Collins, all under 25 years old. You have the fourth most projected cap space in the league. You have the 23rd overall pick. Now, you're going to lose some guys, and you might lose Bobby Slowick also. But yeah, certainly a bright outlook for the Texans. Evan, any thoughts on them as they head to their offseason?
Yeah, I'm starting to think that they might not lose Bobby Slowick because I think that he was at one point considered the favorite for the Titans job, but then the Titans hired Brian Callahan from the Bengals.
Mm-hmm.
So, and really when you zoom out, Bobby Slowick, only 1 year as a play caller, has some things to ironed out. Was he more the product of CJ Stroud? Those are things that may work against him, and the fact that the Texans advanced in the playoffs kind of worked against him a little bit, I think.
Yeah.
The Ravens, I think, kind of outcoached the Texans to an extent here too, because what they did, they dropped guys into coverage and they played coverage against the Texans, dared them to run, and the Texans really didn't have much of a running game all season. Devin Singletary had one really nice run for 16 yards. Other than that, he had 8 carries for 6 yards. So the Ravens just did what they should do, and that wound up working. And the Texans really never got anything going on offense. Their only touchdown in the game was scored via punt return, Steven Sims.
All right, let's go to the Chiefs. Another incredible Mahomes versus Josh Allen game, and another one where Mahomes finds a way to emerge on top. Mahomes is now 3-0 against Josh Allen in the playoffs and 3-1 against Josh Allen in the regular season. And that's not to say anything bad about Josh Allen. He was incredible in this game, I thought, and we'll get to that. But Patrick Mahomes, with this Chiefs defense fully healthy, it's just such a ridiculous combo. Even with Mecole Hardman trying to give the game away, even with Rashee Rice bottled up a bit, Chiefs still find a way to get it done. 6th straight AFC Championship game for the Kansas City Chiefs. Pretty wild. Evan, what do you think of Chiefs win up there in Buffalo?
And Travis Kelce was awesome in this game. Now, he was left wide open. How does that even happen on one of his touchdowns? And he got covered a lot by A.J. Klein, who's like a career journeyman. The Bills were down to they have lost so many linebackers and good linebackers that they're down to geeks off the street. But so it was a great matchup. But hey, Kelce capitalized. I thought he looked good, sending the hearts up to Tay in the box and everything. And that's great for them. I hope that they're happy. Pacheco, Pacheco is a real good running back. I think he runs with a lot of velocity, and I don't know. I just think he's just a good runner, and they can be a power running offense because of the players on their offensive line. They're not good in protection. The offensive line is not very good in protection, especially the tackles. But the tackles are big brute forces, and they can really run block. And we've seen Pacheco. Pacheco has been really good, 8 straight games.
Yeah. From a fantasy perspective, Pacheco without McKinnon is just such a beast. It's just the role is so much better because he gets more red zone stuff and he gets more opportunities in the pass game. In this game, Pacheco, 16 opportunities compared to just 3 for Clyde Edwards-Helaire. All right, we'll wrap up here with the Bills and, sad feel for Tyler Bass, feel for Josh Allen, because I thought he played an incredible game and he keeps taking these losses to Mahomes, but man, he threw a pass 75 yards in the air to Steph Diggs, hits him in the hands, 2 hands, and Diggs doesn't come down with it. The Diggs stuff is really bad because they can't really get out of his contract. He seems unhappy. He seems withered. He had 0 touchdowns over his final 7 games, 0 100-yard games over his last 13. My general take on the Bills is it's not time to panic, but you need to have the defense healthy. You just have to, much like Miami, you need to get the defense healthy and keep them healthy. And I think both the Bills and the Dolphins have a very good chance to be Super Bowl teams. But yeah, like Evan said, they lost so many guys on defense. It was really hard for them to even slow down the Chiefs offense, which is a shell of itself formerly. So yeah, Evan, Any final thoughts on the Bills as they head to their offseason?
You know, they really, for the spot that they were in around midseason, for all their defensive losses, they fired their offensive coordinator during the year. You know, I think it was largely a successful season. And, you know, there were people saying that, I mean, at one point they were the 11th seed in the AFC and they were totally counted out. And they wound up winning, 6 or 7 games to close out the year to get to the divisional round. And they lost by 3 in part because their idiot kicker missed a chip shot. In fairness, though, you know, this stupid rule where, you know, I think it was McCole Hardman, right?
Yeah.
Fumbled out of the back of the end zone.
Yeah.
You know, that should not be a turnover.
Yeah, they're going to change that this offseason.
Okay, good. Yeah. So, but the Bills did the most that they could. They also, like, again, they're not that talented on offense.
Especially
really,
when Gabe doesn't play.
When Gabe doesn't play and when Diggs is like, you know, the mystery man, which he was for the entire second half of the season again. So I think that, I don't know, I think they need to do something to get rid of Diggs and try to find a more dynamic number one. T. Higgins, I think, would be awesome in Buffalo. He's played in the cold in Cincinnati. But these guys, you know, and Khalil Shakir is good. I mean, I think they really found something in Khalil Shakir, but he's a role player. You know, Gabe Davis, even, he's a role player. Dalton Kincaid might be more than that to him, but he looked like largely a role player and a pretty good one at times as a rookie. I do think that they found something that they can hang their hat on in the running game. They really hadn't had a running game at all the previous, several seasons, and James Cook gave them that this year. He took a big step.
Oh, for sure. Yep. All right. That is going to do it for this conference championship round team by team preview. If you're a subscriber, we'll be back on Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern to talk through all angles of the 2-game slate coming up on Sunday. For Evan, for producer Ryan, for producer Luke, I am Adam. Good luck, everybody.